Just got back from half a day at court, and lots of really interesting things. Interesting that court, do you spell it C-O-U-R-T or C-A-U-G-H-T? Certainly feels like the latter to me. And I arrived there, told I should arrive there at 9:30. I wasn't meant to be seen till 10:30, earliest. So why did they tell me to get there at 9:30? I wasn't actually seen till 11:30 or 12. I was bottom of the list. It was a very, very strange place. There were all these people there, all these men with all these funny sort of ladies' wigs on. Very, very strange. And I went up to one of them. I said, what was that wig all about? He said, I don't know. Why didn't you tell me? And I said, well, it seems a bit bit strange. Maybe it's a bit of black magic or something. He didn't like that. And later on, I was chatting to one of his colleagues at random. He said, he's a defendant because he came into the case and he's being done for a public nuisance. Funny how they see people as, I thought we were presumed innocent, but I'll get to more to that later. So thank you very much to the people that came. There were about 7 people that came to watch and listen and help, and we went through the preparation. But you see, with these things, it's like Alice in Wonderland, as I already said. So, you can do all your preparation, but you never know what's going to happen. And now for me, the most important part, I think, for me, is what I would describe as the spiritual part, which is facing the fear and realising that actually everything's really everything is happening in my imagination, and that fear is how this whole system stays in place. And therefore it's about me realising that I'm creating negative fantasies in the future. And when I first found out that there could be a life imprisonment for this, even though I know it's highly unlikely that I'm going to get any imprisonment. In fact, I think it's highly unlikely that I'm going to be that a jury would find me guilty of anything. But I felt really frightened and concerned, and that's exactly how they operate. Yes, there's no us and there's no them, and we're all in this together. And actually, one of the things that I did, and this might sound a bit strange, but it's part of I would say, spiritual practice, is I meditated before I went into the court, and I visualised the people that work in there, and I prayed for them. I don't know how, this sounds a bit strange, but what would I say? Maybe, how can I put it? I just had thoughts that they should have thoughts of compassion towards them. They're doing whatever they're doing. I don't know what their story is. I don't really know how they got caught up in this whole thing, but so be it. Anyway, so I prepared a whole bunch of questions, and I was going to try different things, and never quite know what to do. And as I was waiting around for such a long time, I went up to one other group of people. There was 3 of them, and I said, "What are you here for?" And they said, "Oh, we're here for handling stolen goods to the value of £50. I said, "Oh, that's interesting. What are you doing in the Crown Court?" And they said, "Well, we just moved to the Crown Court 6 months ago, and it's going on for another 6 months, and we have to keep coming back for case management hearings and all that." And I went up to this woman dressed with one of these funny wigs, and I said, "What do you think about that?" And she said, "Oh, no comment." And she said, "Oh, I'm a prosecutor. Ask that lady over there." And I'll tell you a bit more about that particular prosecutor in a moment. And, one does wonder, doesn't one? So this is how it works. We're in times of austerity. Now look up that word, what that word actually means. What does austerity mean? We're in austerity, and there's no money to go around, yet somebody has may have handled stolen goods for £50, yeah? And they're pleading not guilty, so one can assume if they're in the Crown Court that's going to be 10 grand minimum of money. I don't know. If you take it, they've got to come to case management, then to the pleading, then to the trial, which will be several days, and all the evidence. Right? And this is times of austerity. How much is that happening in Crown Courts? How much is that happening in magistrates' courts? And why? Who's checking it all out? Have we left it all to them? Which brings me, I think, to to more something along the lines of some kind of response and a positive solution. And this may already be in case, but I think that we, the people, we might want to find some way of creating some kind of, I don't know, grand jury made up of a whole bunch of people across the spectrum to start to look at what's going on in those courts. I mean, for the first thing is, how can you leave it to a bunch of barristers and lawyers to decide what's in the public interest when they've got a conflict of interest? All these people are making loads and loads of money in the courts out of all this stuff. So how can they be allowed to make these decisions? Who gave them that power? They've got too much power already. Anyway, so I get into the courtroom. It's a very, very nice courtroom. Lovely, all plush and everything. And the judge sitting up there with his wig and his gown and different colours, all sorts of, fancy stuff. And I think to myself, I wish you'd just take that off and just be like everyone else, wear whatever we're wearing. It's really strange sort of seeing a sort of, I don't know, a man in his 60s dressed in a wig with robes and things. Like, what is going on? I don't know. But anyway, so I get in there, and there's this big screen right at the back where they put all their defendants. So I said, am I obliged to go in there? I really don't want to go in there. Oh yes, you are obliged to go in there. And so I said, all right, fine, I'll go in there, right? So I stood up there and sat down and stood up just when he told me to and all this business. Anyway, it was quite an enjoyable experience, and the most important thing about it, which I'm so excited about, this is the second time in 2 weeks where I've seemed to have got a long way in getting over my fear. I just felt totally calm in there, and I asked questions, and he was all right with my asking questions. He was very polite, and he was smiling quite a bit. And at one stage, I asked him, "Is there a bit of a conflict of interest here? How can I have a fair trial when the British Transport Police are paid by Network Rail, and Network Rail have got these rules, and then the prosecutor works also for the same people, and you?" And he said, "No, me, I don't. I work for the Queen," he said. And I thought to myself afterwards, that's interesting. He works for the Queen, so the Queen's behind all this, is she? I wondered who it was that was behind all this. Maybe I'll give her a little call and ask her if she knows what's going on in her courtrooms. Anyway, so we had this whole thing, and they set the dates for the next hearing, which is not even the trial. The next hearing is the pleading. So we go a case management hearing, and then they've got to get all their evidence. And I'm probably not allowed to tell you about their evidence, but really, when you see it afterwards, I think you'll find it very interesting. And I have to then put my defence case forward, and then I have to go back there. So far, for using the megaphone in a public place and causing a public nuisance, in other words, for being annoying for some people for a short period of time, I have now had to go to court 3 times, and I've got another 2 times to go. That's 5 times in court at my own expense. Now, I've got to thank you, by the way, because it's also at your expense, because, of course, every time I go to court, the people in court are getting paid, and, so it's your expense as well at the moment. Obviously, at the end, if I'm found guilty of speaking, then I'll have to pay for that bit, and maybe some of it will be relieved and you won't have to pay for it. So thank you for that, because it's been an amazing journey of education, and this type you couldn't pay for this type of education, and most of the people who work in the Law Society don't have a clue what it's actually like. They're there, but they don't have a clue what it's like being on the receiving end until you're on the receiving end. And so basically they said that they're going to review the case. They're going to review the case. And at one stage, the judge tried to do a little bit of business with me. The way they do it, though, is just fabulous. It's so subtle, you know. And he said, well, you know, what are you going to do? Do you indicate what you're going to plea for the railway bylaws? Because, you know, if we he was sort of seemed to be saying, you know, if we drop the charge of public nuisance, which is the greater charge, and you agree to sort of say that you're guilty for the railway bylaws, then, you know, perhaps we can do a little bit of business here. And I said, no, that's not going to happen, I'm afraid. And so they're going to review the whole case, right? I wonder who's going to review it and on what basis. And I'm, as I said, back in court on the 12th of September, unless, of course, they decide to drop it. And so that's it. That's an update. Lots of questions about what is going on in there, and about their strange regalia, and about whether there's some power fetish going on, whatever that means. Anyway, thanks everybody who came. Thanks for taking interest. Thanks for everybody who contributed with ideas. And have a great day.